Hey guys, hope you're all doing well. So in today's video, we will be going to talk about how to add authentication in your Angular application. You don't have to bother about creating your own authentication mechanisms on your backend side while working with your Angular applications. So authentication is being the major part of every application we are working on. So currently, as you are working on any applications, or if you are using Facebook, Twitter, or any other applications, so hopefully you have seen the authentication mechanisms. Authentication mechanisms consist of three kind of services for every authentication mechanism we have. So we have login, we have register like a sign up method, and we also have a logout mechanism for that. So in the newer traditional applications, we also have passwordless login mechanisms, like when you log into a certain applications. So it will fire a notification on your cell phone which you are on and which you are trusted. So on that, if you accept that, so you are successfully logged in. So that's kind of a very detailed video. So we will be covering up those things in the future. So for today's video, we will be going to talk about enabling the authentication mechanisms in your Angular applications. So you don't have to worry about enabling your authentication mechanisms. So we have Auth0. Auth0 is a secure access for everyone. So it's kind of a single sign-on application. So it's a generalized service which is actually been acquired by Okta. So Auth0 is kind of a very amazing authentication mechanism service. So you can enable authentication in your Angular, React, or any kind of application you have. So you don't have to create your authentication services by your own. So in today's video, we will be going to talk about how we can create this enable the authentication in our Angular applications. So today's video is about that. So yeah, let's dig into this. So we have a certain we have some certain steps we have to focus about. So the first thing is to configure your authentication application, and the second part is to install your Angular SDK, authentication SDK in your Angular application. Then we have to create three things: to add login, to add logout, and to show user profile which is successfully logged in, right? So let's start with the very first thing. So that's kind of enabling your like configuring Auth0. So in Auth0, when you open this website, so you have a login button here at the top bar. So you have to click on that. Once you will be click on that login button, so it will redirect you to the authentication Auth0 dashboard. Auth0 is a service which you can create for your application. So they supports multiple kind of brandings. You can change the branding as your own. Like I'm clicking on this universal login, so you can go and you can click the button color, you can click the primary color. Assume that I have set it out these colors, so it will generate those things as well. So this is kind of a very amazing service if you will be going to work on that, right? So in authentication, so we have multiple kind of things here. So in applications we have this one. So in applications, if we can go in application inside here, so you can go into your applications, and in applications it will show you your current running applications. When you clicked on that successful login, so it will you will be landed on this screen. So in this screen you can create your new application from here. You can also create the add social login provider for your authentication mechanisms as well. So let's talk about those in deep, right? So after login, you can easily go to applications from here, from the side menu on the left you are looking into. So here I have already created this new application which is Angular Auth, right? So here in Angular Auth, when you create application successfully, it will ask for your name, right? So you can add the name here, whatever your application's name, and also these domain, client ID, and client secret, right? These things are generated from authentication Auth0. So those will be used once you will be creating your application on Angular or React. Here is the application logo. So whatever the application logo you want to refer here, so you can, by default logo is from authentication Auth0. And if you have any logo, so you can just host that logo in any S3 CDN bucket, and you can pass the URL here. So it will show that logo on a universal login pop-up, right? So I have an application type. So if you are working on native application, so you have to select native. So currently I'm working on Angular. So Angular is a SPA, single page application. So that's what I have selected, this one. Here in application URLs, so it will ask for three things. Those are more necessary to provide, right? The ones is allowed callback URLs. So that allowed callback URLs should be your root URL. So currently my Angular, whatever Angular applications you are working on, so Angular by default port is localhost 4200, like for local dev environment. So I have pasted this URL here in my application URLs, right? And this same URL is passed here in allowed logout URLs, and same URL is being passed here allowed web origins, right? So if you are working on, like, assume that you have worked on this application and you have deployed this application to the like UAT environment, staging, or production environment, so you have to add those by separated commas here. Assume that I have my own domain, so you have to give that, I have to provide that here, because this will also redirect those things. So we have to provide those URLs here. This is my local dev environment, this is my production URL. So this is the way you can provide other URLs, the application in which the application will be hosted on, right? So currently I'm testing for my local application, so I have to provide those, because authentication, once you will click on this login, so the login pop-up will be going to open. So once that login pop-up opens, when you provide the certain credentials to that pop-up, authentication modal, so when it will be successfully logged in, so you will be again redirected to your main application from where you have initiated the login call, right? So these 3 points, you have to add these 3 URLs here. Then after, like, these things are by default created, ID, token expiration, rotation, and all. So other special thing which I did here is, that was, let me show you, there was for the that's not showing up here, so that was actually for enabling the passwordless. So I will show you out that in the separate chunk, no worries. Right, so this is what our first part was. So, and here in connections tab, in connections tab, I have created those, I have enabled the social authentication. So social authentication is like kind of, I have enabled Google Auth, and in passwordless, I have also enabled the email one. So yeah, these 3 methods are being enabled on my login authentication mechanism, right? So this is the very first thing we have to do. Now the second thing is to install the Auth0 Angular SDK, right? So the Auth0 Angular SDK is being installed here in my application. Let me show you out here. So in the README file, let me check it out. Okay, so here in the README file of my repository, I have added that in my README file on line number 9. You can check it out, this URL, npm install Auth0 Angular. So this Auth0 Angular is an open source package which you can install and like start consuming the authentication mechanisms freely in your Angular applications. You don't have to bother about how I have to create the authentication, because in certain cases you have to develop your own authentication mechanisms. For that you have to hire a backend developer to do that task. So backend developers should have to create the authentication mechanism, like login, register, sign up, or like forget passwords, profile pages. So this is the whole authentication module in every backend application we have. So the good thing about Auth0 is you just have to click this, like either you are working on Angular or React or Vue.js. So Auth0 has those packages open source, created open sourcely, so you can just click that out and it will install that package in your application, and then after you can use those APIs which I was showing you. So this is the domain, this is client ID, this is client secret. So you have to just copy it out and like start sharing in your application module, and it will start working on. So let me show you how it's working on, right? So this is my code base. So I have already ran this command, which is npm install auth0 Angular. So after that after that it is actually been showing up here. Let me show you out. So here auth0 Angular. So on line number 21, so this is showing like which authentication version is being installed in my Angular application, right? So this was actually the very first part I did. So after that, after installing that one, so I have configured the authentication APIs which was created, like authentication API key and client secret. So here in environments folder, if you can go in the environments.ts file, so here I have shared that out. So here in the client ID place, you have to create your own client ID and domain. So that domain is also being provided here on the screen, which I had showed you. So domain and client ID, right? So you have shown both of them here. You have to place it here, right, in environments file. So after that, in environments file, after this chunk, you have your application module. So here in application module, you have to import your authentication auth0 SDK, which we have installed by this command, which I have shown you from README, this one, npm install auth0. So after installing that SDK, what you have to do is creating your domain and client ID object here in environment.ts, or rather less, like it's a good practice. You don't have to create it. You can directly paste it here as well, here environment.auth, right? So I am using this environment.auth from my environment file, right? So what I have did is like I have created in my application module, in my app module file on line number 9, I have imported that SDK, that auth module SDK from auth0 Angular, right? So after that, I am using and initiating this module in my imports array. So this is how Angular applications are working. So whatever open source third-party modules you are using and installing, so you have to register those modules in app.module file. So in my app.module, I have imported this SDK and I have registered that one here in auth_module.root for root, and I'm providing this authentication one, this object, from my environment.ts, like, okay, this is my domain and this is my client ID. You can register my application here, right? So in this manner, the application we have configured on browser, on here, the application we have configured on browser, so that's been attached and registered. That's been attached and registered with your Angular application here in the code base, right? So this is how the magic is. So now successfully by these three things, so that authentication is being successfully added in your application, right? So now let me show you out from where I have initiated the login call, so how it's been opening that one. So after doing those things, I have created a layout. I have created a layout folder in application folder, and here I have header.component.ts, right? And also I have this one. So what I have did is, now the third thing we have to do is the fourth thing, sorry. So the third and fourth thing is we gonna do is, after initiating and registering your authentication module here in app.module, the component from where your login button will be going to initiate a login call. So in that component, you have to use this auth service, right? So now the second task is to import your auth service from auth0 SDK. So I have imported this auth0 service. Earlier we have created auth0 auth module, right? So now we are importing auth service, right? So after importing this auth service, I have created a constructor here, right? So now I will inject this auth to open my login pop-up and initiate the logout call from my component. So this is how it's been a magic. So we don't have to worry about creating APIs and initiating the methods. So initiating the API methods for login, logout, and all kind of things. So it will redirect you to that login mechanism automatically. So after registering this, in my header.component, I have created a simple div with HTML, right? And in HTML, I have created this auth, the constructor which I have been created here with the name of auth. So here I am using like if auth is authenticated. So this is an observable which is provided by this class. So it will going to check like either your application, either the user is authenticated or not. So if it's authenticated, so only then logout button will be going to show, right? And from here on the logout button, I have added a click method. So in that click method, this same constructor which I have been created here on line number 14. So I am saying this click method like initiate a logout call. When that logout button will be going to click authentication, this auth is a constructor which I have created here on line number 14. So I'm saying it here like auth.logout. So it will be going to log out what? It will be going to log out the authenticated user. So now on the other case here, if you are looking into if and else, so if you probably know about little bit about programming, so you will know like what ngIf is. Sorry, not ngIf, if and else conditions. So in Angular applications, we have these structural directives. So with those actually we are doing this ngIf and else. So if user is authenticated, so it will be looking into this logout button, right? The user will be going to look, that logout button will be appear there on the main screen. So if the user is not, so I actually did else logout. So this is a logout from line number 9 to line number 11. So this is actually a ng template which I have created. So if the login is, if user is not authenticated, so the login button will be going to show on the user screen. So in this button, in this login button, I have also added a click method, and inside that click method, I am again using this auth constructor, which I have been used here. I have created this auth from auth service from Auth0 SDK. So I've created a constructor here, right? Which we are using here in logout case as well. So here in login case, we have a method to open that login mechanism pop-up, which will be help you to log in, right? So I am saying to my application like auth, if user is clicking on this login button, please initiate the login pop-up. So authentication Auth0 had provided this amazing method which is going to open an authentication mechanism for you. So on the click of this login button, auth constructor is being initiated with this login with redirect. So what this will be going to do is it will open a pop-up from where you can insert your email and password if you have Auth0 account. So if you provide those authentication email and password, so it will magically open and authenticated you to that application, and all doors are open for you. So this is how the magic thing is going to do. So another thing, now this third and fourth thing we have did this. Now the fifth task is to like show user profile information. If user successfully log in, so user will going to user will have their his or her successful information about his profile or her profile on the main screen, right? So in the components, I have a homepage component .html file. So here in the component HTML file homepage, same I did what I have initiated an authentication service from Auth0 SDK, and I have created a constructor here. The constructor which I have created here, so this constructor is from this constructor is same created in the header file I have created, right? So the same constructor is being created here in homepage component as well. Why? Because I'm using this authentication service for performing some operations. In the header case, I was using this constructor same for performing the login and logout activities, right? Now I'm using this authentication service here in homepage component to show the successful user data. So I'm saying it here like authentication constructor dot user. So it will going to create you an observable, a stream of user which is successfully logged in. So that stream had contained the user information, right? So authentication. So here is again an ng if condition. So it will only going to render the user informations if user is successfully logged in. Otherwise, you will not going to see this information, right? So once user is clicked on login, user had provided his or her credentials. Once it will be successfully logged in, then on the home page, user will going to see his or her information, right? So here I'm saying if auth constructor is a user, like a user exists in the authentication constructor variable, so then it will show you a welcome in h2 tag, and also it will show you the proper email address, right? So this user observable will contain as authenticated user information in every case whenever the user is successfully logged in. So these are the 5 steps we gonna have to perform to enable your authentication mechanism in your Angular applications. So now let me demo you out, like after this coding exercise, after this coding mechanism, after this coding enablement, so how application gonna work. So I have Angular application which I have shown you the code base. So here it's been running, right? So here this is a default port for Angular application for 200. So if I'm clicking on this login button, so it will be going to redirect, and it will going to open this what? It will going to open this this login pop-up, right? So when you click on continue, so it says no, your password is correct, wrong. So I have also enabled the Google authentication mechanism here. So let me go you out. So I have also enabled the Google authentication here. So if I am clicking on continue with Google, so it will show my Google profiles here which are successfully logged in. When I clicked on this profile which I have been logged in, so it says authorize your application. So if I said accept, so now here you can see successful is being showing here. Now my header is being showing with the logout button. So if I click on logout, so again it will be the user is logged out. So this is how magically things are going on. So all credit goes to Auth0. So Auth0 has a powerful authentication mechanism we have. So as I'm Pakistan's first Auth0 ambassador, so my task, like this is it's my pleasure to share the information like how we have to create this enable authentication mechanism in our Angular applications. So with that, actually this is actually kind of a secure access for like users. Either we are employers somewhere, either we have a shopping information, either we have a credit card information on our website. So authentication which is being enabled by a developer in a single day or in a month, it's easily hackable, right? So authentication Auth0 is it's kind of a team. So the whole team is working. So it's kind of a very powerful authentication mechanism we have. Companies are using it, like billion-dollar startups are using it. So yeah, we also have to use that rather than creating our own APIs for the backend, right? So once authentication Auth0 has been successful, you can perform certain operations. It will send you out multiple keys if you want to. So you can also use this JWT token initiator. So once you will have a success from authentication mechanism Auth0, so then you can also create your JWT and pass those JWT token to your consecutive remaining APIs to open your to create your communication between to create the communication between your APIs. So login is actually kind of a very first thing we have to do. Like either we are using Amazon, we are using AliExpress. So that authentication mechanism is kind of very important. It plays a very key role in application development. So this is all about authentication, enabling authentication in your Angular application. So I will cover more information in my next video. So yeah, this is how. Let me show you out how this branding works. So if I'm clicking on this universal login, so here it will show you the background color for your application. So if I'm saying like, okay, my background color should be white, and my primary color should be this one, right? And I'm saying it's save. So that magic automatically enabled here. Let me show you out. Here in my application, if I'm clicking on this Auth0 and if I'm clicking on this login, so that login is now successfully being enabled. So let me show you. If I am clicking out that application, because it's actually being used, so now you can see my background color is white rather than black, and this continue button color is being changed, like so, right? So this is actually the magic of using this. So they provide the automatic branding here as well. So if I change logo, if I provide any URL of logo here, so it will automatically being changed. So this is how powerful it is. So yeah, it's all about this is all about the enablement of authentication in your Angular application. So see you guys in the next video. So I will be covering up more other informations, and I will cover the passwordless integration. So yeah, thank you.